unstoppable kick-ass confidence. Are you ready?
Welcome to the Raw and Unscripted show with Christopher Rausch, where we help you overcome your self-created crap without the self-help fluffy bullshit. Now please welcome our host, Christopher Rausch.
And please welcome to the show. What's going on, ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls? Hello, hello. It's the Raw and Unscripted show once again back here every Tuesday night, 7 p.m. Pacific Standard Time. I am your host, Christopher Rausch, also known as the No Excuses Coach. What's going on, ladies and gentlemen? Appreciate you guys being here, whether you're live or on the replay, whether you're listening on the audio podcast or you're watching us courtesy of the video podcast. We appreciate you guys being here. And as always, you guys are a part of the conversation, so do not forget that. This is just a conversation between myself and my guest tonight. We're going to impart some information upon you that we highly encourage you to go take action on, because when you take action on the information that you receive and you follow up on that action, guess what? You get progress and you get results. It's one thing to get inspired about what it is that you're hearing, go, oh my God, that conversation was so great. I'm going to do that one day. That one day never comes. That one day becomes a regret. And we don't want regrets. That's what we talk about here on the Raw and Unscripted show. No regrets, ladies and gentlemen, because life is short. Life is short. So I appreciate you guys tuning in. And just for a quick little commercial here for if you guys tuning in, those of you who are ready to do this, you guys know I'm on the board of directors for Help Heal Humanity. And right now there is no shortage of help that is needed around the globe, the splitting blue marble in space. So helphealhumanity.org is an incredible organization that I'm proud to be on the board of directors with. And when you get value out of this particular episode, I would appreciate you guys making a $5, $10, $25, whatever it is donation that you can make to help support what it is that we're doing, because all of the proceeds, all the money that we raise go exactly to the cause that we're fighting for. None of the money goes to anybody's pockets. Nobody's driving a Corvette. Not that I know of. And it all goes to the end result of what it is that we're trying to do. So Help Heal Humanity is something that we need right now. There's so many people right now with food insecurity, shelter insecurities, and the list goes on, what it is that we can do. So Help Heal Humanity is concentrated efforts in Haiti and Cambodia, all over the world, in Canada, here in the United States. And so I know that when you guys get value out of these episodes, I know you guys do this. You guys have sent me the screenshot saying, hey, Chris, I made a donation. Thank you for that episode. Thank you. We don't do any commercials. I don't do any advertising here. This is the only thing I do because I'm a part of this organization. I believe in it so highly that together, all of us, if we all pitch in $25, it's pretty incredible what we can do. When we feed the families in Haiti, we send the kids to school, and we send the kids to school. But we found out one thing: when they go to school hungry, they're not able to concentrate very well. So we upped the ante and we started raising even more money to be able to feed the kids. And right now, with all the commotion going on in Haiti, you guys have probably seen it on the news. The kids aren't going to school, but guess what we're doing? We're still feeding. We're feeding the families. What we're doing is we're able to have the parents come to the school, and we give them rice, beans, and something else that is evading my mind right now. But we feed the families, and that's the one thing we can all do together. If you have food in your cabinets and you got a plentiful life, please consider doing what you can, because together we're all contained under that heading, humanity. And if it wasn't you and the person in the situation that you're in and that abundance, it might be something that you need help with. So appreciate you guys checking it out. Helphealhumanity.org for you guys listening on the podcast. Thank you for doing that. And here's a little special offer that I do periodically. If you make a $200 donation, I will gift you an hour of my coaching time on the spot. So you get a tax deductible donation. You're helping people feed themselves and get nourishment. And then you get an hour of my time, which is definitely a discounted rate. So consider doing that. I would appreciate it. There's a few of you who have done that. So thank you guys for doing that once again. And together we can help heal humanity. So thank you, thank you, thank you. And I'm excited tonight for our guest. We have an amazing guest on the show. I met him courtesy of the Owl app. I believe it was the Owl app. I've met so many people in the last 6 months. It's pretty incredible. I'm so blessed. And it was a situation where they were saying, hey, let's get on everybody's shows and, cross-pollinate and learn about what each other does. And so I was blessed to be on his show. It's called Hacks And Hobbies with Junaid. It's a great show. We had an excellent conversation, and Junaid is an exceptional human being. And we're going to be digging into all of his expertise that are going to help you get in front of the camera, get out of your own particular way, start taking action in your life, so that by the end of the episode, I want you to have 3 action items written down that you're going to follow through on. And if you need an accountability coach, hook me up, because I'm here for you guys. So this is all about getting out of our comfort zone. And I see we got Jacqueline in the house. She says, you and Scott inspire me so much. Very grateful for you two. We are grateful for you, Jacqueline Rose. You are an amazing human being. We got Nellie from Hooked on Humanity. We got Help Heal Humanity. We got Hooked on Humanity. So thank you, Nellie, for being here. She says, howdy, Chris and everyone. Thank you for being here. And without any further ado, let's please welcome the host of Hacks and Hobbies with Junaid, Mr. Junaid Ahmed. What's up going on, Junaid? Thank you for being here on the Raw&Unscripted show.
Hey, man. Thank you so much for having me. I'm super excited and super honored to be here as well, man. Thank you.
Thank you. I just want to start off the bat. I get so many compliments on my background with the neon and the guitars and everything and like that. And I noticed you got the neon and the red and the blue. So we go together, and not only we go together in the colors, we go together in the beautiful beards that we have.
That's right.
See,
I like it.
We're two studly gentlemen here with our own shows. We're bringing the good looks and we're bringing the information for you guys. So we encourage you guys to write stuff down. We got Christopher Kaysen in the house. What's up, Christopher? He says, hola. Thank you for being here, brother, from Salt Lake City, Utah. Appreciate you. So let's just jump right into it. So Junaid, you are the host of, I want to make sure I get it right, Hacks and Hobbies with Junaid. Talk to us about that show and what got you started in doing that.
Man, I love the show. It all started with my passion for creating content. So I've been creating blogs and content since the early 2000s, the millennium and whatnot. And then we heard about the podcast coming out, and it was just around 2012 that I started a podcast called Still Brewing It with my two cousins. But that didn't go too far because there was way too many moving pieces. We were talking earlier about how you sometimes get up at 6 a.m. or sometimes up at 3 a.m. because we're connecting with people worldwide. And the pandemic has made it so much easier for us to do that. Now, in 2018, I wanted to document my journey on podcasting, or podcasting as well as beekeeping. And Gary, my man, Vaynerchuk, told me,
Gary V.
Just go and create and document your journey. I was like, what am I going to be documenting? It just so happened that I had finished my beekeeping course and I was starting to set up my beehives. I'm like, oh, this would be a pretty fun thing. So I started the podcast as a solo episode talking about beekeeping and what it takes to keep a beehive, all the different things that they do and the different species that they have. So that was all first season on Hacks and Hobbies. Was all about beekeeping. But then I was like, let's see who else out there is talking to themselves on the podcast. Let me see if I can start bringing these people in. And I was shy at first. So I reached out to my close friends, my close family. I'm like, hey, come talk to me on my podcast.
Come keep me company, damn it.
Keep me company, dude. Come on, do that.
You were doing audio podcasts. You weren't doing video podcasts, right?
Yeah, no video at all. It was just audio. And so we had conversations and it was a lot of fun. I was like, wow, this is pretty exciting. So to date, I've interviewed over 400 people on the podcast, and you've been one of the amazing guests as well. So thank you so much. That's what got me started, and that's what keeps me going.
Yeah, no, I love that. And when I think about that, I know a lot of people who are still to this day. I mean, podcasts have been going for quite some time. I don't even know how many millions of podcasts there are, but still people have that trouble with getting in front of the camera, getting in front of the microphone, and actually saying words. They're afraid of appearing to be an imposter. How do we get people to? What was that journey for you, imposter syndrome, if that even happened? And how do we get people to get out of their own way to be able to not feel like they're an imposter, that they have something to say, worthwhile to say, and that the world needs to hear it?
Man, that's an amazing question, because when I first started, I was like, hey, I'm just going to document my journey. It's going to be like a pastime for me. So as I was driving in my car to work and back from work, that's when I was recording these episodes. I didn't have extra time, right? Like
I was going to do the same thing. How funny. I bought one of those mini recorders, the HN1, H51 or whatever. I was going to do it in my car, but they could hear the traffic noise when I was doing it. So I never did it. How funny.
I used my phone and my iPad, and I had like a noise canceling headset that I would put on through, and then I would just record. Of course, editing takes some of the noise out, but regardless, the more I talked to myself, the more comfortable I got. So with the pandemic, we got the camera opening up, and you're right. There are about 3 million podcasts, where there were about 500,000 back when I started in 2015, 2017. And then, so the number has I don't even know what the percentage number has gone to, but it's exponentially risen. And what's happening is now the more time that we spend in front of the camera and in Zoom calls, the much easier we are getting to be, we're getting more comfortable. And I think the key for myself to get even more comfortable was I started hanging out with people that were supporting me, that were encouraging me, that were helping me break down, like, who is Junaid, what's mindset, what mindset you are, they're holding a safe space. And, it just enabled me to open up even more. And the more I did that, the more confirmation, the more encouragement I got, and the more comfortable I kept going. But it's all a matter of just getting started. And I think just going down and having people around us supporting, like Christopher, you are like always pumping me up whenever we're having a chat. People around us like yourself is what we all need.
Yeah. No, it's so true. I mean, that's what I think about when I first started mine. I did a live radio show for 3 years called the Kickass radio show. I did it through Blog Talk Radio. Nice. And for me, it was very awkward sitting here in my studio, like talking to myself, like there was nobody to talk to. Yeah. And so I did that for 3 years. Then I put it on hiatus and people were saying, you need to do a podcast. And I'm like, podcast? I want to do it live. I want the spontaneity of it. Yeah. And so I was actually a guest on one of my friend's podcasts. He was on the Speaking to the Heart podcast network. And I was one of his first guests on the show. He's like, same thing. He's like, dude, I want to do a podcast, but I don't want to do it alone. I can't imagine talking to myself for 45 minutes. Would you be a guest on the show? Because he knows I could talk a lot. And I said, sure, no problem. And I think I was his third guest. And his producer was in on the Zoom call. And so we were doing it on video. It wasn't released on video, but we were doing it on video. Mm-hmm. And I was like hooked. I'm like, okay, as long as I could see somebody, I can have a great conversation with somebody. Yeah. And then after the show was over, the podcast producer was like, oh my God, you have a great voice. Have you ever thought about doing podcasts? I said, it's funny you used to say that. I just did a 3-year radio show. I said, I put it on hiatus because there was technical difficulties with the internet and whatnot. And I said, yeah, I've kind of considered it. The guy pursued me for a year. It took me a year, honestly, Junaid, because I started Googling it and I'm like, you need this microphone, you need these lights, you need this nice camera, you need all these things. And I was like, and then you need to edit and you have to edit out the ahs and the ums and everything. And it just became so overwhelming. Talk to us about that. Do you take that many steps in your producing of your podcast and your shows, or do you kind of let it go? That's the whole reason why this is called Raw and Unscripted, by the way, is I was like, okay, I'm not going to edit. I'm going to go live. If I say ums, if I talk in circles, whatever it might be, my true personality is going to come out in there. I use a C930 camera. Of course, I've got the industry standard with the SM7B, which I deserve that. But talk to us about what it is that sometimes holds us back and thinking we have to have everything perfect before we take that first step.
The reason that specific perfection holds us back is that we've been bombarded with that through television, through music videos, through Instagram, through all of those things that we've been consuming. They're showcasing perfection. Nobody's showcasing, oh, it's okay to fail. It's okay to do it raw. It's okay to do it unscripted. Nobody's saying that, right? So the more we accept to be who we are as a person, the easier it gets. And the only way that happens is that you got to practice, or you got to have those conversations. You got to have those hard conversations, those hard reflection with not only yourself but the friends around you, and having that support. So if you're struggling with starting a live show or any type of conversation, I do a 30-day challenge. Just record a video on your own phone, talk about a specific topic, save it on your phone. You don't have to post it anywhere. And every once in a while I'll say, okay, we're creating a small group, post it in the group, because guess what everybody else is doing? They're all on the same path. They're all on the same journey. And it all comes down to when we're going to school together, right? First grade, second grade, everybody in that class is on that same path, on that same journey. So I think coming around and thinking from that perspective, it becomes a lot easier. And if you look at the adult school, right? What is the adult school, the late night school? All the people who want to learn about a specific subject, they're coming in here. They're all on the same path, learning and encouraging each other. So I think community is so important, and that's the foundation of being a human being. We're social animals. We want immediate feedback from people who we trust and who we admire and who inspire us. So having support network like that, I think, is super important.
Yes. No, I love what you're talking about. What you're talking about really reminds me of the fact that when we think about anything we started out doing, like I was telling my son about the first time I rode my bicycle without training wheels. I said, I crashed. I said, I crashed multiple times. I skinned my knee up. I skinned my elbow up.
Yeah.
I hurt. I didn't want to do it anymore. But those first few pedals of being free of the training wheels were really liberating. And I just didn't want to give up. Like anything else we do in life, the first couple of times are going to be wonky and everything else. But I tell people deliberately fail your way to success. Like you say, I love it. The fact that just take out your phone and just record yourself, because like anything else, it becomes like second nature. Like I remember when I first started, I would be sitting here in front of the camera, and as soon as the thing went live, I'd be like, hi, and you can go back. All my shows, or all my first shows, there weren't video podcasts to start with. I did them on video, and then I would send my producer, because I wound up being on that network. I would send my producer the file, and he would extrapolate the audio file, and then he would make the podcast. And so I put those up on my YouTube channel to show people, like, they're like, oh, you're such a natural in front of the camera. It's not a big deal for you. I'm like, oh, those first times, even though I could talk, I was like, as soon as that thing went live, I was like, hi, my name's Christopher Rausch. I'm the No Excuses coach. And I'm like sweating. I'd be like, okay, my stomach's gurgling and everything else. But now I can literally, like, somebody says, hey, like I tell all my friends, I think I told you this, like if anybody ever needs a spot on the moment guest, somebody flakes on them, I have no problem walking in here. I literally can tell it's not called Alexa. I could tell Alexa, because it's a different name, to turn on my studio lights. So my overhead lights and my backlights come on. I literally pull because my camera sits in front of my monitor so I can see you. So I'm looking past my camera so I can see your face. I swing my mic over, said, let's go. So I'm now, after 3 years of doing this, now it's perfect nature. But every time still, I try to get a little bit better about that. Talk to us about a time in your life where you failed miserably and you learned. What did you learn the most out of that particular situation? It could be related to podcasting or something else in your life, but you failed miserably. And what did you learn from that experience?
Well, the one experience that popped into my head as soon as you talked about riding your bicycle without the training wheels was, this is 2016, right? I've been riding my bikes all my life. And I bought a bike in which you have to clip your feet in.
Oh, oh, I know where this is going.
Right.
I won't do those clips.
This is a TT bike. This is a time trial bike. And I was like, oh, this is cool. Because in 2016 May, my sister was like, hey, we're going to do a 5 boroughs New York bike ride. It's going to be like 40 miles. So get ready. So in January of 2016, I bought this bike and I was like, okay, I'm so excited. I got it for like a sweet deal. It came in, I put everything together. I sat on it. I clipped on my feet and I started riding. And then I hit both brakes. I'm like, perfect, it broke. It stopped. And I'm like, oh crap, my feet are stuck. Oh. And I go landing on left side. I'm like, okay, I got to figure out how to get my feet out faster than that. Coming back from where I had gone, I did the same thing again, but this time I fell on my left side, on my right side. God. So now I got my both knees scratched, and I'm like, okay, got to practice on this first. So even though I've been riding for years and years and years, it's okay to make mistakes, because guess what? You're going to learn. I was watching this video of this gentleman, Nick Nimmons. He's a huge YouTuber. You probably heard of him. He's like, I've been recording videos for YouTube for 8 years. And at this one point, he had to give a talk to this other network. And he went for 24 minutes talking without even hitting the live on the YouTube channel.
Oh, whoops.
Like, oops. So yes, that was really embarrassing for me to, have known how to ride a bike and then fall over. Like, that's pretty sad. So yeah, that's my story right there.
And so what did that teach you about things moving forward?
What it teach me is that, hey, I need to keep moving, keep practicing on how to clip out of my pedals faster. There was a setting in there where the torque was too tight, it was too tight in. So I was like, I need to just release it so it's a little easier to kick out my feet, because you don't want it too tight, you don't want it too loose, that every time you're pedaling, your feet are coming off. So that's where I learned. Figure out what's causing the problem, so then you can fix it and then you can continue riding.
Yeah, I mean that's what we're talking about here tonight for you guys listening and watching this. We're talking about the fact that you just got to take that imperfect action and learn how to pivot with things. I mean, I've had situations here. We know that the internet can be whatever the internet is. I've had situations where, and it might happen today. It may happen where my internet goes out. I have a direct line into my computer. Sometimes it freaks out and I freeze. And so people will be like, well, how do you handle that? That would freak me out. I'm like, I've had enough experiences now that I know, and I usually tell my guests, hey, if I freeze, just keep on talking. It's just one of those glitches. I've had Charter out here. I've had everybody out here and their brother. I have the best internet. It is what it is. You just continue to pivot. And I learned that because when I did my live radio show, I had a soap opera star on my show. And she's like, well, how do you do your show? And I said, I do it through Blog Talk. And she says, oh, I've had bad experiences with Blog Talk. They're kind of, and I said, and in my mind, I was like, yeah, that's why I'm thinking about ending this and maybe doing this podcast thing. But I said, no, it'll be great. It'll be great. Mm-hmm. And I was so nervous with her, and this wasn't on video. So we were just like over the phone, and we're microphones and everything. And I lost connection to my production board, if you will, 3 times during that interview. 3 times. Wow. And one time I was shitting bricks. I was just like, oh my God, oh my God, oh my God. And it disconnected. And I came back on just as she was like, just as soon as she was like, and that's kind of what happened, Chris. And I was like, oh, thank you, Sandra D. I appreciate that so much. I'm sweating bullets. I'm shitting myself. I'm like, ask her a couple more questions. It happens again. Oh my God. I get back in there. Sure enough, she's just ending the statement. We get to the end of the show, and I always do a post-show, a little chit-chat, which we'll do. And she's like, oh my God, Chris, that was so much fun. And she goes, I thought there was going to be problems. And I said, Sandra D, and I know her. And I said, I have to be honest with you. I said, I lost connection to the board 3 times during this conversation. And she's like, wow, I didn't really notice. She goes, well, one time I thought you were gonna say something, but you didn't. So I just kept on talking. And I said, perfect. But that situation taught me, Junaid, is that the fact that things are going to happen, and we do the best to recover, and we learn from that, and we learn that that's life. And I think to my big point that I'm saying here is we're all in those situations. You can't hide it. Just say, that's what it is. Call it the elephant in the room. Say, thank you very much. We're going to get started again. We're going to resume our conversation just like we would do in any other part of our life. Talk to us about why people have that. You mentioned perfectionism. Why is perfectionism such a thing? And how can we get people to take a couple of steps to get out of that?
Man, that's an amazing question. And I think one of the reasons is we've been watching it so much on others. And then there's a lizard brain inside us. We're going to get rejected. We're going to get booed on. We're going to get this wrong. Plus, in school, they're teaching children, hey, if you got it wrong, guess what? You don't get an A. You don't get you don't get a pass over. Or I know it is changing. It is getting better over time now. But that's what we've been taught in school to get to that perfect. You got to have the A grade versus B or C or D grade. And it's one of the reasons why there's a lot of the new generation is like, hey, I don't really need to go to college. I can do this on my own, or I don't need to go down this route if I can just do the track that I want to be good at, the track that I want to do with my life. I think there's a lot of that happening as well. So it's a changing times for sure, man. The education system has been around for 150 years. So there's going to be another 150 years to go before this all kind of dilutes and dies out, where, we are getting good at just trying and making mistakes and coming back over it.
Yeah. It's true. I mean, it just put one foot in front of the other, sit there. And I love what you said, because I'm very deep into the whole conditioning process. Like I've always dug back the onion. I've been in personal development for over 20 years. I've been a coach for over 20 years. And it's always been my fascination, my curiosity of like, what screws us up? Where does it happen? Where does it happen? And I never thought in a million years it was when we were kids. I thought, it's when we were teenagers, maybe it's in our 20s. And I kept going backwards and backwards and backwards. And I started studying child psychology. And I found out it happens between the ages 0 and 5. That conditioning period that happens, that shapes our beliefs. And to your point, we're in school, and I was a terrible student. I didn't know that I needed glasses. I didn't know I had a hearing problem. And so I got shitty grades. And every time I would raise my hand, I got the answer wrong. So what did I do? I stopped raising my hand. And I thought, okay, if I don't open my mouth, then I don't have to risk being wrong. And that way I could just sit here and go, okay, now that person got it wrong, that person got it wrong. But I never took a chance. I never was truly living my true purpose until I started taking those progressive actions. Did you ever have a situation in your life like that kind of stunned you, but you had to get over?
A few times for sure. I mean, I'm trying to remember. I have a very bad memory in my past. But yes, I think there were some times where See, now you've got me stunned.
I've got you stunned. Well, let me ask a different question while you think about that. So thinking about people are watching this tonight, and I know people that want to start their own shows. How do you plan your shows out? I mean, for me, Raw&Unscripted, I do some background investigation. I don't do a whole heck of a lot. I have a couple of ideas in my mind of how I want the conversation to go. I think about it like a central theme. Like I asked you before we went live, I said, what do you want to get across to people tonight? And then I just trust myself. Whereas before I was such a planner that it took the enjoyment out of it. Talk to me about how you plan your shows and what kind of recommendations we could give to people to not be so scared about planning and doing their shows, and also how to kind of go with the flow and trust their instincts.
Absolutely. So the number one thing that I like to do is practice. Just keep practicing. I mean, how do we learn how to walk? We practice. How do we learn how to ride a bicycle or make pancakes or make eggs?
Beer bongs.
Yeah, exactly. Beer bongs. You just got to do more practice. So just like talking, just like producing a show, it all takes practice. But if you don't do that practice, you're not going to get good at it. So start practicing. But where do you start to practice? That's a great question. You have a ton of examples to look at. You've got Chris's show, Raw&Unscripted. You got my show, Hacks and Hobbies. There's a ton of shows out there. There's over 3 million podcasts out there, and you can listen to them like, okay, I like their format. Write that down and see, okay, how can you drive your conversation? When I did my episodes for the documenting the beekeeping journey, I was just reading it off of my memory about the stuff that I learned the day before. So it was all off of memory. But now for the Hacks and Hobbies podcast, I've got a little run of the show. I'm like, hey, I'm going to begin with an intro. I'm going to begin with learning about my guest, how they got started, blah, blah, blah. And then go into, ask questions around those experiences on how that affected them, and then go into. So most of the conversation is mostly free flow, but we're talking about something that you've already done. And then the next thing that I do is like, okay, let's take a quick break, come back with 3 hacks. And then you share the 3 hacks on the podcast. And then these are something actionable, just like you mentioned earlier, you want to give 3 things for your audience, for people listening to the episode, actionable so they can take action on. Then towards the end of the show, I'll do these fun 6 questions because I love, it's Hacks and Hobbies,
those.
right?
Those are great.
Yeah, thank you. So I basically came up with these questions over time, and initially I had like 15 different questions. I was like, let's bring it down to 6 questions, which are my favorite questions. And now I've got a kind of like a simple run of the show that even if I don't have my documents, I can run through the show without having to think too much about it.
I love that. What you're talking about here reminds me of the fact that just putting our best foot forward and talking about doing our best. I think about my journey and doing podcasting and doing shows and doing things that are uncomfortable. I mean, speaking on stage in front of thousands of people, that's one of the biggest fears in life. But overcoming our fear gives us such greater confidence to go do more and to be more and to explore ourselves more and to be more open and authentic and vulnerable with people. That's the creating that connection point. And that's what I love about your show, because there's definitely a connection point, and that you as an interviewer give a great feeling for that environment. I was trying to think of the right word for that environment. And that's one thing that we can do by just being naturally ourselves and not trying to be somebody that we're not. I remember before I started my podcast, I might have been already doing it, but Andy Frisella, I'm not sure if you're familiar with Andy Frisella. He used to do the MFCEO project. It was the motherfucking CEO project. He owns a nutrition company. It's escaping me right now, but he was just being raw and cussing and just being himself. And I was like, oh my God, that's who I am. That's who I want to be. But I was so scared of doing it because I didn't want to offend people. But, talk to us about the fact that we just need to be who we are at our core. Otherwise, we're not going to solve anything.
Man, I love that, because in the most recent times, right, personal brand has been becoming more and more. Some of the oldest personal brands that you can say, oh my God, that's a personal brand, right? Michael Jackson, Madonna, Michael Jordan. These are all personal brands. You can name any actor. They are a personal brand for whatever company they're running with. If you go even further back, do you want to know about a personal brand that made possible all of the people in this world following a certain something? Jesus was a personal brand, right? So he was being himself. So why are we trying to be somebody else, right? If you're being yourself, guess what's happening? You are inviting people into your life. You're inviting people into who you are. You're not being fake. You're not being somebody else. My kids are running in my shows all the time, and I've embraced it because that is who I am. That is who Junaid is, right? He loves hobbies. He loves his kids. So that is my personal brand. That is who I am. So the more you become yourself, the more you start attracting other people.
Mm-hmm.
And I think there's a pretty cool saying that says, just be yourself because everybody else is taken.
Yes. I love that. I love that. And you brought up kids. I was hoping you're going to bring up kids. Do any of your kids want to follow in your footsteps and have their own podcast? I was shocked. My son's 6 years old. He's watching YouTube for Kids. And I'm seeing all these kids, and I've heard about it, but I've never really seen it. These kids are on there hosting their own video programs. They're basically showing kids how to play video games and these hacks. And these kids have such great broadcasting skills. Do any of your kids aspire to follow in your footsteps and want to have their own show?
They actually, my two sons, they started when they were 10 and 6. They basically have their own YouTube channel where they were building Lego, and they're building Transformers, and they're talking about these pullback cars made of Lego. And they've been creating, so initially everybody's shy to show their face. So we just see their hands, and they got these toys, and they're talking about them. So those are the videos. And then as time progressed, they started showing their faces in the videos. They're talking to people on the videos. And I'm like, okay, this is what we're going to do in this one. And now they have skits, and they have like all these cool things that they're doing in videos all by themselves, because I said, hey, you can go and do this because I want you to have access to all that's possible, so you can be who you are and create that following, or create that community around you.
Have you thought about doing any shows with your kids?
I have not. I actually did one specific show where it was a Zoom call. We talked about starting a YouTube channel for kids and what they should do. So that was a pretty cool one where there was other parents and their kids on the Zoom call as well, and they asked questions, and then my son would answer. So that was a pretty fun conversation there.
Huh. That's awesome. And the reason why I asked that is I've been trying to get my son. I said, he comes in here, and every once in a while, you talked about just being yourself. One of the things people know about me and my show is I have a 110-pound Doberman who likes to bark at everything that moves. So we get a lot of Amazon and whatever. My wife's is a fiend that way. And so everyone, I'll just go, there's Ozzy, because I'll see I have my mixer over here, and I'll just see out of the corner of my eye, my peak meter going, roof, roof, roof. And most people would freak, and I'm like, I used to like, shut up, Ozzy, shut up, oh my god, and now I'm like, everybody's like, the people will chime in the comments like, oh, we hear Ozzy. I'm like, it is what it is. Or sometimes my son is coming here to say goodnight, like I've been doing a show and he's gone to bed early, and he just grabs the microphone. I'm like, hey, come on, buddy. I have him sit in my lap, and like most people like, get away, I'm doing a show, I'm being serious. I'm like, here, dude, have the microphone. So I'm trying to get, I want to call it the Jackson and Daddy Show. Nice. And I want to have just get him comfortable in front of a microphone. He's already comfortable in front of people. He's a lot like me. It's pretty cool. The other day he walked by the crossing guard, and he goes, you have a great day, miss. And I was like, I didn't have to prompt him. I was like, tell people to have a great day. And I say hi to everybody. I'm always very cordial. I want to make the world a better place. And so I've been talking to him about that. What advice would you have for somebody who wants to do a show with a partner?
You got to have good chemistry with the partner that you're working with. Yeah. You got to you got to spend a little more time and at least have an idea of what they like and what they're about. And if you've hung out with somebody for more than 24 hours, you probably know a lot about them, probably more than you would like. Like some of the reasons I have these questions towards the end of my show is so I can understand, okay, they like this type of movies, they like this types of shows, they're into this superhero, or they're not into superheroes. And then we can like open up the floodgates and talk about, Marvel or DC or Star Wars and Star Trek and you name it, you have that cult opening, right? Exactly. And that's what you got to find out about who the co-host is going to be with you. When I started our first show, still brewing it, you can still listen to the 4 episodes that are out there.
Gotta check it out.
Right. We just talked about tech because we love tech, but if we had the time, we could have taken it longer. But again, we only had one specific track mind. We didn't have a lot more. I don't know. The timing was the main biggest concern that we couldn't come together on. I've gone very unscripted on that one.
That's good. That's good. That's why it's
that's where I'm at. Yeah.
Yeah, no, I love that. And I'm going to shift gears now because I really want to dig into what you do now with your video production. I get, I think, I can't remember if I said it off camera. I think I said it off camera, is that I get so many compliments on my background. And it still blows my mind thinking about COVID was going on for so long and so many people were doing Zooms. Every once in a while you see people maybe put a plant behind them or something like that. Talk to us about, setting up studios, because I know that's one of the services you offer. How important is that? And what are some things that people should consider when they're setting up their environment for a video show?
One of the reasons that I set up my studio was to get comfortable and feel confident, right? When I look good in camera, guess what's happening? I'm like, oh, dude, I look good. I can talk about anything in the world. Yep. And it's just like when you go to meet people or when you're going out, you're going to a party. What are you going to do? You're going to dress up nice and clean. You got your sharp jacket on, et cetera, just to build your confidence. So that was the reasoning behind why I set up my own studio. Now, I set it up for my own, to feed my own, what do you call it? There's a word for that.
Sense of style?
Yes, sense of style, or, my own brain, like to calm down. Hey, you look good. You can say anything. That's all I wanted. I wanted to create a course. So I wanted to look good. But then people started asking me, how can I do this, what you did? Like, let me walk you through it.
Yeah.
And then, so it just helps with you to show up on camera even better. Because now that you got that correct, now you can spend more time on creating the content, on getting up to speed on the topics that you're really passionate about and to talk about.
Yeah. I love that, because the funny thing is I didn't design this with the idea that it was going to be a video backdrop. I used to have 6 guitars hanging behind me, and I was like, well, that's too many guitars. And I just started shaping it. The sound panel I actually added when I realized, I'm like, oh, this is a good shot for me. My 2 lamps right there. Yeah. I had regular light bulbs in them, and I was like, man, I want to do this neon thing. And I did that like 3 years ago. And so I was like, okay, it looks good. And all of a sudden it was like, oh, you have such a great backdrop. I'm like, that's just actually, I created it for my own comfort. Yeah. The other thing about it, Junaid, was in my other room, I have these 2, because everybody said you needed maximum lighting. You need a overhead light. You need 2 lights here. Lighting is so important. And I was like, okay, so I bought these big things off of Amazon, these big gigantic things, and the top one, and I had them in front of me, and I was so blind. I'm very light sensitive. So I was like, so today we're talking about, and I was like, okay, I just want it like groovy. I want it like we're sitting in a bar or coffee, because that's why I didn't tell you this, but usually we're just sitting at a bar or coffee shop having a conversation, and all of our guests right here, all of our people here, they're just sitting here listening like, oh, hey man, I want to eavesdrop on that. So I just decided, I'm like, screw it. I'm going to make it dark and like easy for my eyes and more comfortable for me. Yeah. That's one of the most important things we got to do. We got to make our environment comfortable for us and what suits our personality 100%. And then go with that. Cause you're right. If I don't have to worry about the lights blinding me, if I don't have to worry about, where my microphone is, I could just move it anywhere I want to. I'm perfectly set. My camera's right there. All I have to think about is enjoying the conversation with somebody. I'm not even 100%. Worried about anything else. I'm not worried about tech. I'm not worried about how many people are following. I'm like in the conversation with Junaid, and Absolutely. That's for me a beautiful thing.
No, you are on the money on that one, because it all comes down to the conversation that we have with the person on our right or on our left. Am I on your right side? You're on my left side.
I know this. I know to point that way, which is counterintuitive, because I have Scott on my Friday night show where I have to go, hey, Scott, go ahead. But because I used to want to do that, but it was like, no.
Right, because we have the cameras unmirrored. You're absolutely right. So the more comfortable we are in our environment, the more the more you're gonna bring out, your uniqueness into the video as well. So I don't even know what the question was.
There was no question. You were actually just commenting back on myself.
Right.
I'm going to take, feel free to take a drink of water. I'm just going to capture some of the beautiful people who are here with us tonight. So we got, let's see, we got Robert Broker in the house. He says, good evening, Christopher and Junaid. Thank you for being here, Robert. Appreciate you. Jacqueline Rose says, you both have so much in common. A beard. Yeah, we got beautiful beards. Nelly says, hey, I used to be a beekeeper. What's funny about this is I've never known a beekeeper in my entire life. Junaid, I don't know if you're familiar. Do you know Tony Rodriguez?
I do not know Tony Rodriguez.
Okay, so I if you want, I can make the introduction. He's from New York. He's a Tony Robbins master trainer, but he's also a beekeeper. So he was actually doing daily videos about his bees, and I had him as a guest on my show. We've been dear friends. We spoke in Chicago earlier this year together at one of the same events, and it was just funny. I was like, beekeepers, and I asked him like a billion questions about it. It's really fascinating.
It's amazing.
I love the fact that you're doing it to help your son, right?
Yes,
that's how you got started.
So it all got started because it all got started because we took my son in 2012. Man, there's a lot of things happening in 2012. We took our son in 2012 to an allergist because we knew he had allergies. And as he's got his back with pinpricks and whatnot, testing on him on different allergies, he said, hey, you should check out local honey. It's really good for seasonal allergies. Now, we knew he was going to have some seasonal allergies like sneezing from the pollen in the air. And we're like, okay, let's get some local honey. Now, if it was anybody normal, they'd probably go to the farmer's market and pick up some local honey, like, hey, I need this. But no, I had to go to the extra step and start a hive in my own backyard.
Love it. Let me bring some stingy motherfuckers in my backyard and make my own juice.
That's right. That's right.
And how has that worked out?
It worked out pretty great. I mean, this was 2012. And then basically 6 years later, when we moved to Virginia and had the backyard to support beekeeping, I was like, okay, now is the time to actually, go into it. And I spent about 6 months just watching videos on YouTube around beekeeping. And this goes to the point about, people thinking about starting a podcast, people thinking about starting a live show, people thinking about starting a bike ride or cycling or working out. You can spend 6 months, you can spend 9 months to a year watching videos other people do.
Yeah.
But then it wasn't until this one gentleman talking in the videos like, hey, if you're really interested in becoming a beekeeper, go find a local beekeeper association. I was like, oh, I didn't even think
they
of that.
Have those.
Right? They have those. So I looked up on Google, Virginia local beekeeping association. Joe, and it just so happened that the same week on like Thursday or something, they were having a meetup. So I go to the meetup. I'm like, oh, this is so cool. And then the lady who was running the show, she's like, oh, you didn't have to come this far. There's actually another beekeeper group association close to where you live.
Oh, wow.
I was like, hallelujah. So the week after, I went to the closer one, and they're like, hey, we're starting a beekeeping teaching class in January. Would you be interested? I was like, yeah, but this other place I went to, they're doing it on the weekend. Like, no, you don't want to do it because they were like, come Saturday, Sunday, 8 hours every day. We're gonna teach you everything you need to know. And the president was like, no, you don't want to do that. That's too much information.
We're doing a fire hose.
Yeah, exactly. It's like, we're gonna do it in an 8-week course where every week, we spend 2 hours together. We teach you do some exercises, and it's gonna stick in your mind. And that's what basically got me started. I took the action of finding people, other beekeeper doing this likely things, right?
Mm-hmm.
And they encourage you, and then now you've got a community of beekeepers working together. It was so fascinating. I think I inspired other beekeepers that were in my den, because I was also leading a Cub Scouts den, and there were some other people there like, hey, you guys want to get into beekeeping? Let's join this class next year and get some more people to become beekeepers.
Dude, I love it. I love it. I love the central message of the conversation tonight is just talking about guys, go out there and take those chances. Go out there and take those risks. Jacqueline says here, Morgan Freeman is a beekeeper. He's been trying to save the bees. He bought a lot of land to have them. Yeah, it's amazing.
I love it.
Hooked on Humanity. Nelly says here, Jacqueline Rose. Interesting. I didn't know that. And Jacqueline says here, I believe it is in North Carolina, Hooked on Humanity. Oh, so they're just having a little chat right here in between.
Yeah.
Great idea. See,
Awesome.
people helping everybody. Robert says here, that is brave of you. Yes, I agree, Robert. I got bees out my backyard and near my pool, and they always come after me. And I tried to actually save the bee. The bee fell inside the pool, and I scooped it up, and I was like, I'm gonna save this bee, and I put it on the ground. Sure enough, the thing flew around and came back and stung me. I was like, I just saved your life. We got Daniel Hall in the house. He says,
Hey, Daniel.
From Maryland, USA, showing up for both my amazing friends, Christopher Rausch and Junaid Ahmed. Thank you, Daniel Hall, for being here. Appreciate that. We got Jacqueline saying, it is what it is every day. You just have to muddle through, take a deep breath and say, I got this. It's called true grit. Amazing. Absolutely. Amen. Daniel says, a great tribe is so vital to help you recover gracefully. I don't have my glasses on. Thank you. We got Paul Roscoe White in the house. A new connection I just made on LinkedIn today. He says, nice, smooth conversation, man. Love it. Well, thank you, Paul. I appreciate it. Paul's a new fan of mine. He likes my straightforward talk. Christopher's in the house. I got to meet Christopher earlier this year. He says, as a mentor of mine that both of you, Chris and I know, said incremental progress over time. Yes. There's a great book out there, ladies and gentlemen. We haven't talked about books, but there's a great book out there by Darren Hardy called The Compound Principle. Phenomenal. Every single day you just do a little bit, you just put that little bit effort in there and it starts compounding upon itself. You start feeling a little bit better, you start doing a little better, take better care of yourself, all those little things. You walk up and then you're living a kick-ass life. So we got Serena Buffalino. Let's talk about Help Heal Humanity at the beginning of the show. And there she is, Serena Buffalino, the CEO and the founder, an amazing individual. So again, go Help Heal Humanity. We talked about that at the beginning of the show, Serena. So I do my little commercial for my beloved organization. Jacqueline says, the problem with me is I open my mouth too much. It tends to get me in trouble. It gets us all in trouble. I mean, if we're honest people, of course it's going to get us in trouble. And if that's the trouble that we need to be stirring, then so be it. That makes people think, and that's a good thing. That's what I like to do, is make people think. Christopher says here, there will always be someone who gets offended because they choose to be offended. Amen. And then Daniel Hall says, Andy Frisella. I don't know if he typed that before or after I said it, but yeah.
It was before, yeah.
Yeah, Andy Frisella. That's I've had some people compare me to him. I can't listen to his new stuff. He gets very political, and I'm not political. I don't get into that side bullshit and finger pointing and everything else. Yeah. Jacqueline says, all I know is to be 100% real. I cannot be fake. I can only be kind, not hateful. Amen. Nelly says here, I cuss because it just happens sometimes, and I'm okay with that, but mostly I just want to be taken seriously, so I try to use as many real words as I can. Oh, come on. Shit, fuck, crap, damn is all real. Jacqueline says, may the force be with you, Junaid. I love that. Are you a Star Wars geek?
I am a Star Wars geek. In fact, I've got Darth Vader, his little army back there, and I've got some other characters back here as well.
Oh, beautiful. And you're actually chiming in on the comments as we're talking?
You know.
I'm like, damn, dude, you're crazy. That's awesome. That is awesome. That is so great. So when people come to you and want to work with you, what's that process look like? Because I know you offer the service of being able to see their environment and everything. What's that process when they say, hey, Junaid, I want to start my show. I want to get my environment set up. I want to get the right equipment. Talk to us about that process that you walk them through.
Absolutely. So the first thing that I asked them to do, let's look at where you're going to set up your home studio. And now the analogy that I like to give is, home studio should be a space in your home that's dedicated for creating content. Now, we're all entrepreneurs. We're all working from home. We're all wanting to go somewhere. So this is our happy place, right? Just like we have a living room, we have a family room, we have our dining room designed for those three purposes. You got to have a studio that's designed for your podcast, that's designed for you to create content, that's designed for you to focus on your work. You might be writing a book. You might be doing all sorts of work where you can just focus. So that's the first thing that I like to ask. Hey, do you have a dedicated space? Okay, perfect. You have a dedicated space. Let's figure out the measurements and analyze this room to see where are the windows, where are the doors, where would where would it get confusing or, distracting. You want to make sure that this place is somewhere that you can set up a studio and not have to worry about. I've got a huge space behind me just because my kids love it, come in here and they love to play in here, right? I've got a swing hanging from the ceiling here so they can swing as well.
Nice.
It's a party town, right? Every once in a while, I'll put up a hammock because I've got these overhead pipes laid out. So analyze our room first. Figure out that room is created. Now, I've helped people all over the world, anywhere from Japan to Australia to London, all remotely, because I used some software that helps me visualize what their room is going to look like. So I take their dimensions, I take their picture, I create their room in my 3D software, and I tell them, hey, this is where you should place your camera, this is where you should place your lights, and this is what you should see from the camera when you do it. So lots of hand-holding, lots of connection and feedback on how they're going to look. And I also then give them a list of equipment based on the measurements that I've taken, based on what they want to show in their studio. So analyze the room, give them a list, they design their studio, and then they're off to the races with setting up the equipment. And then we test everything, make sure all the software is loaded, and they can do all sorts of fun things. And that's how I help people with their studios.
Dude, that is tremendous. That is tremendous. And when you were talking about that, it made me think about, like, I've had people tell me, like, because I'm fortunate enough, I live in a big enough house where I've got my own studio, my own office, my own man cave, whatever you want to call it. Yeah. And so I'm able to do it. I'm able to, come in here and set up and do this. And I had a buddy of mine like, that must be nice, Chris. I've got 3 kids and I don't have any available rooms. And I said, do you have a garage? He says, yes. And I said, well, what about the garage? He goes, oh, that's an opportunity. He goes, and I said, don't you have an RV out front? He goes, yeah. So I sat there and said, is anybody in the RV right now? And he goes, no. And I said, do you have all the creature comforts in the RV? Can you plug the RV in and have a refrigerator? He goes, yeah. And I said, that's your studio. He's like, that's your studio. I didn't even think about it. Yeah. So he does his show live from his RV. You could never tell. He's got the backdrop. He's got a backdrop hanging behind him. Mm-hmm. He's got the perfect set of lights, and he's out there and it's quiet and nobody bugs him because nobody wants to go out in the RV. So it's like, you just got to be creative about your spot and go figure it out. For a long time, I actually did my first video cast from a secret location inside my corporate. When I was in my corporate job, I had a secret meeting room that I could actually go use. So I used that. So I was like taking advantage of, while everybody was at lunch, I used this room and I would do, 20-minute little videos. Nice. And so you just got to be creative about what it is that you find in your space. But I love the fact that you give them that 3D picture. And so you're walking them through hand in hand. Talk to us about the equipment. Talk about, what somebody's getting started. They're on a limited budget. What are some ideas for some equipment to get them started?
Well, I like to recommend someone starting with, first of all, start with your lights, and then you can add on other equipment, because my studio didn't start out this fancy, right? I didn't have these fun color lights in the back before. I didn't have the foam padding. I just had a camera. I just had the lights, and I was good to go. And as you go and as you grow your show and grow your studio, you can add in equipment. One at a time. So the first thing that I did was, I was like, okay, let me get this thing set up. Now we have the capability where you can actually use, I'm switching cameras right now. Yeah. So
you got more toys than I do.
I can use my phone, right, as a camera on my studio. So because this is a high-end camera, much bigger sensor and lens compared to a webcam. So you can start with your smartphone. And with the new iOS 16 and Mac Ventura, it automatically detects, hey, I have an iPhone around, I can use it as a camera, and away you go. So it's really powerful. Light is free. I know we are doing our show at nighttime, so we have to use external lights. But if you sit in front of a window and just put a white sheet, you can automatically get some really good lights through that. So for my equipment, I say start based on your budget. Start where you are. Use your smartphone, which it's already $1,000 camera. Yeah. But then if you do want to level up, skip the webcam, because they have I know you've been using and rocking the webcam for a while. The reason I like to go with a mirrorless camera is because the sensor size in it is what makes this bokeh and this blur. Like my hand is blurred because I'm out of the focus point. I like to start this with this camera. My camera is 6 years old.
Wow.
Right? Which means that the physics in these cameras do not change. The lens on one of these cameras over here, this guy is at least 8 years old. So physics don't change, and this is this is an investment in your studio that's gonna give you a return on investment for years to come. So I recommend get a mirrorless camera that has at least a crop sensor. You can pick it up anywhere from $300 to like $600 and go from there. And just to give you an idea of how big the sensor is compared to a webcam, I'm just trying to look at these things in my studio. So let's say this is the size of a sensor on a webcam. It's a little microphone here.
Yeah.
This would be the size of a sensor on a full mirrorless camera.
Whoa.
Right?
Yeah,
So
I definitely
it's
need to
huge.
upgrade. I've been sticking with this thing for a long time, but I definitely need to upgrade. I've upgraded everything else, and it's just like, well, the camera works, but I love how you have it blurred out a little bit in the back. So I love that look. It's perfect.
So that's where I start with, and then of course so you start with lights. You got lights. You got your fun camera. You got your iPhone or Android that you can use. I even have a video that teaches you, hey, how can you use a smartphone, be it an Android or a iPhone, to work with your PC or Mac. It's very easy. But the most important thing of all is audio. You gotta have really good audio, because the smoothness in our voice can only be captured by a really good microphone. People might be looking away, but they're still hearing you. That's why we have 2 ears, right? To listen to everything that's happening. And that's why podcasts make an amazing platform to create content, and because people are consuming this content on the go. They might be on the run, they might be on a bike, they might be working out, they might be at the gym, but they're getting this raw and unscripted conversation happening in their ears and motivating them as they're running that 2-mile run or 5-mile run on the treadmill.
Yeah, no, I love that, man. And I appreciate that. I started off with a Shure SM58 microphone. It was one of my studio mics that I was using when I was doing singing stuff. Yeah. And I was like, honestly, that's a $99 mic. This one was $400. I had gift cards and stuff like that. That's what I allowed myself to buy it. Yeah. But when I did an audio test, I really could barely tell the difference between the $100 mic and the $400 mic. Yeah. For me, it was just something I just wanted the stature. I wanted, okay, I'm serious about this. I'm going to go to the best possible microphone I could possibly get. But yeah, you just start there and you just start going and you start building it up, and it's fun. It becomes an addiction. It's like next thing I said, like I want to do my camera, and yeah.
I think the other thing an expensive microphone does, it gives us the boost that we need. Like host, I am big shot right here. I've got this nice microphone. I can talk about anything. It's just like the building that confidence, Why do we get these nice suits? It builds that confidence. You spend a pretty money on it, right? It gives you confidence, and confidence is all it takes to get to that next level, and then to the next level, and then to the next level up.
Junaid Ahmed, man, this has been an awesome conversation. I know you're beat. Where can people get a hold of you and continue the conversation with you, man? Because this has been a brilliant show tonight. And I know people have been getting a lot of value out of it. Where can they get a hold of you and continue the conversation with you?
They can reach me on anywhere on the social media platforms at Super Junaid. There we go. SuperJunaid.com is a site where I've got everything home studio mastery, where they can come and learn all about my home studio consults, and I've got a course. I do some live training as well as group coaching. So I've got all those access. You can come to me. You can find me on LinkedIn and Facebook. I'm all over the place.
You are.
Just come find me. Thank you.
This has been a great conversation, guys. I'm going to place you backstage. Junaid, don't go anywhere. I know you want to go to sleep. I'm just going to wrap up the show, and I'll be right with you. Thank you, brother. I appreciate you.
You got it, brother.
And there we have it, ladies and gentlemen. Thank you guys all so much for being here. It's been an incredible conversation. Daniel Hall says, Junaid Ahmed, are you familiar with Lauro bees? So that's a question you can ask. You can answer afterwards. Christopher says, what if you live in an apartment with not enough room to have your own dedicated podcast room? Then you can find a corner of the room, but this is a perfect opportunity to hit up Junaid and ask him, and he can have that conversation with you. Definitely. Robert, I will get to your comments. You know, I always love your comments. Nelly says, all of this is so helpful. Absolutely. So Nelly, you can start your Hooked on Humanity podcast. She says, I need better speakers for my laptop. Just get yourself some in-ears. I got them off of Amazon for like $20. Plug it into my monitor or plug it into my my mixer, and it's all good to go. Robert says, here, don't mind me, I'm just crazy. We know you, Robert, and we love you, and we appreciate it. Nelly says, here, I will be following. Yes, definitely, most certainly you should be. Thank you guys all for tuning in, whether you're live or on the replay. Again, connect with Junaid. He's a wealth of information. And in today's world, this is what we're going to. We know we've been doing Zooms over the last couple of years with COVID. You know, having your personal brand is something else we talked about in here. Be who you are. Be who you are. I'm the guy that wears the hat and the bandana because I like the bandana because when I sweat, I don't like to pour sweat all over myself. And I've been known for this. And I'm just me. I'm just, hey, Christopher Rausch, Raw&Unscripted, or the Unfiltered Experience. Just be who you are and just show up to the world and say, hey, this is my unique gift that I can give you. There's 8 billion people on the planet. You may not be the right person for many people that you think that you will judge you, but you're going to be right for so many other people because they're going to say, wow, Nelly's out there doing a podcast. Chris is out there doing a podcast. Daniel Hall is out there doing a podcast. They're just like me. They just got started and they started taking those progressive steps. That's what you guys can do. That's what I'm here to teach you every single week is when you take that progressive action, that compound interest, that compound principle. Hey, I did something that was uncomfortable and I was afraid of. What can I do next? What is something else that's been in my life that I've been avoiding because I'm afraid of fear and rejection or imposter syndrome? We talked about that earlier on in the show. If you joined us late, go back to the beginning of the show because we started things off right away with a couple of bang up questions and Junaid gave excellent answers. So think about this. You have an opportunity to be a participant in your life. You have an opportunity to share your knowledge and your passions with the world. Back when I was a kid, none of this was possible. When I was a kid, I dreamed of being a DJ. I wanted to be a FM radio DJ. I wanted to spin music and talk about life and everything else. And to do that, you had to go to a station. You had to go do all sorts of things. Now we have all the technology right here. We have the answers right in the palm of our hand, literally. You could pick this thing up and you could start typing into YouTube. Junaid talked about it. That's how I learned stuff. I've learned so many things from YouTube. It's all right there. Type it in there, learn it, apply it, and continue to grow. You guys can go check out my YouTube page, youtube.com/Christopher Rausch. You could see in there when I first started my podcast, you could see how my studio was different. I didn't have all this stuff. Progressively, you just take those actions, you just start feeling better and you start getting your groove on. It's like dancing. Like sometimes you get on there and you're like, okay, I want to really cut it up, but I want to really listen to the music, but I'm afraid somebody's going to look at me. Just fire your freak flag. I mean, go for it. Life is to be lived right now, not to be viewed as a spectator. This is a participant sport. I appreciate each and every one of you guys. Again, whether you're live or on the replay, again, go to helphealhumanity.org and contribute what you can from this particular episode if you got value out of it, which I know you did. And together we can continue making this world a better place and we can help heal humanity. I'm Christopher Rausch. I love you guys. We'll be back here next Tuesday. One of the things you guys have been asking me is like, Chris, tell us who the guest is coming up next week. So I have been doing a better job of that. So thank you for asking that. Any suggestions, any comments, anything, any feedback you have for me, please reach out to me. This is such a blessing for me to be able to do for you and do with you, but I need your input and your feedback as well. What types of guests you want, what types of subjects you want. Do you want it shorter? Do you want it longer? Some people have asked me to go longer form because I try to cut it off at 45 minutes to an hour. Some people have said, hey, Chris, can you do a half an hour? My commute's only a half an hour. I just kind of go with the feel of things, but I try to keep it like that. But let me know what your feedback is so we can make sure that happens for you, and I can include that. So let's see. Next 4 shows, we got Kendall Myers, Mr. Overcomer. Kendall Myers is going to be on the show next week. A tremendously inspirational story that you do not want to miss. We all love the inspiration because we're all capable of doing more with our lives. And sometimes we need to see somebody who maybe has it worse than us to be inspired by that. So join us next Tuesday night, 7 p.m. Pacific Standard Time. As always, go to noexcusescoach.com. You can find all my shows. You can go to the events tab. You can find out when I'm speaking on Clubhouse. You can find out all sorts of things. And I just love and appreciate each and every one of you. Go out there, be brilliant. Go live your life. No regrets. And I'll see you in here next week on the Raw&Unscripted show. I'm Christopher Rausch, and I bid you